Under the same roof, we share the love, embracing the differences like hand in glove. Spreading peace and joy, it's a beautiful sight. Together we shine in each other's light. United we stand in love's pure might. Watching the world share in love and light. Hearts beating as one in our peaceful flight. Colors of harmony painting the night. United we stand in love's pure might.
Here in New York City, in one of the high-rise buildings of a hospital, perhaps even Mount Sinai, who knows? But there were two men in the hotel room, right? Have you heard the story about that? Well, today I'm going to tell you about the two guys that were actually in the hospital, and this is actually stems from a true story. But anyway, there was one guy that was by the window, the other guy was by the door. And so every day, the guy by the door, because he could not see out of the window, he would ask his roommate, he would say, "What do you see?" Right? The guy was so depressed. So the guy by the window would often tell him, "There's a beautiful couple out there with their children walking in the park." The next day, he would say, "Good friend, tell me what you see." And the man would say, "Oh, there's a lady, beautiful lady, walking her dog." And this would go on for day in and day out. In fact, the guy by the door would often listen out for these kind words that his dear roommate, who was by the window, would share with him. At some point, the gentleman by the window passed away. And so one day when the nurse came in to clean up the affairs for the gentleman that was by the window, the gentleman by the door, he says, my good roommate used to tell me what was happening outside of the window. Could you tell me what's happening? Is that couple outside? And she says, "Sir, I don't know what you're talking about." She says, the gentleman that died, he was blind. And also outside of that window is a large brick wall. She says, perhaps he was just telling you those things to encourage you. The moral of the story is every day in the chat, we have so many people coming in. Oh, this one calling names to that one. You're a Democrat. Oh, you're a Republican. Oh, you're big. You're small. You're dumb. You're smart. And it goes on day in and day out, right? But in the story, we see that the gentleman took the time because he wanted to encourage the next guy, so much so he was making up stories just to lift up his fellow man. Right now, we're living in a world where there's so many wars happening. Things are happening all over the place. We don't even know what's coming next. I guarantee you, if Iran or whichever country decides to come for America, because right now in New York, we're on high alert. In the United States, we're on high alert. I guarantee you when the Iranians come to make you a hot dog on a stick, the last thing you're going to ask your neighbor is, what party do you ride with? That'll be the last thing you ask your neighbor when they come for your head. You're going to want to band together with anybody and everybody to try to figure this thing out. Because we live in these little small worlds. We live in our own little box. Everybody wants to be a part of a label. Oh, I'm with the brown jacket guys. Oh, no, I'm with the black jacket guys. I'm a New York Yankee. Oh, I like the Mets. And this goes on forever. So I just wanted to take a moment because in the last live, everybody was just calling names. It was just too crazy. Sometimes we just need to understand the importance of trying to lift up our fellow man, our neighbor, our family member. Sometimes, hell, you just have to learn to even lift yourself up because a lot of us walk around and it's always a rainy day in your head. And because you're having this rainy day in your head, you're going to look at everything through tinted lenses Someone else might be having the time of their life, and because you're having a rainy day in your head, you want to cast some sort of shadow on their lives. So let's just try to, for this live, let's try to be like the man in the hospital room by the window that's trying to lift up the guy who did not have the ability to see things as clearly as he was able to. All right, so now today we're going to get to the news at noon. We just covered Donald Trump and the big reward ceremony for what that was worth. We had so many people here, Democrats and Republicans alike. Hopefully we can try to have a meeting of the minds in order to come to some sort of reasonable agreement. Today we're going to talk about what's happening in Iran, right? We're going to talk about how the president of the United States is showing strength throughout the world, even though many people don't know what's happening. There's so many day-to-day threats that we don't even get a chance to understand, but often we get to see the finished product, and that is war or some regime change or whatever, whichever way you want to frame it, whichever way it's been spun to you, whichever way you accept it, we'll leave it that way. Also, we're going to talk about Don Lemon and try to make sense of what could happen to him. Is he facing some serious time? Was he wrong by going into a church? A lot of people in the United States are very religious. They identify with the church, even though they may not go every Sunday. So we're going to look at that, which is more relevant, freedom of religion or freedom of the press. We're also going to talk about this shooting that happened down in Texas. Like, what's really happening? You could just go out to grab a cheeseburger, go grab a bottle of water, and the next thing you know, you might be fighting for your life. As you guys know, I just came back from Tucson, Arizona. And so we're going to be talking about Nancy Guthrie because now we're at the whole month. It's been a month since she's gone missing, and everybody wants to know what happened to Nancy, right? So let's start off. We're going to get into what happened with the leader, right? The top leader in Iran from the religious standpoint. So in other words, this man was next to God in their theology. Well, Donald Trump took him out. Let's get to it.
24 hours since the U.S. and Israel began a military campaign against Iran, which resulted in the death of Iran's supreme leader, as well as hundreds of others. 3 U.S. service members also lost their lives. Overnight, the U.S. engaged in more airstrikes in Iran, with the White House taking to social media to weigh in on the power of the U.S. military. They praised the work of B-2 stealth bombers, armed with 2,000-pound bombs, in attacking Iran's ballistic missile facilities. But reactions to the strikes have been mixed. Protesters in Pakistan stormed the U.S. consulate to protest U.S. airstrikes in Iran, resulting in at least 9 deaths. Elsewhere, the U.S. is receiving support for the operations, including from the...
And I want you guys to understand what happened here. Donald Trump and his administration, they had been talking so much about Iran and what they were going to do, but they had this intelligence that was following them for the last 7 days or beyond. And because the pressure was on so much, all of these leaders came together to talk about what are we going to do about Donald Trump. And that's why you're able to see that some 40 plus leaders were wiped out because they were all meeting about how they were going to address these issues coming from the United States. It was almost like the grand setup because that's where they lost their lives. So we see that the United States is very efficient at war and acts of war. And also we see that the world is starting to take Donald Trump and his administration very serious because we saw the same thing happen with Nicolas Maduro. For those of you that follow this channel all the time, you know that I attend the court cases, the federal court cases, Sean Diddy Combs, Nicolas Maduro, all of these particular cases. I have Harvey Weinstein coming up. I'll be covering that again too. Okay. But Donald Trump actually had these words with Nicolas Maduro. Maduro was pushing back saying, listen, try me if you want to. The next thing you know, I'm sitting in court, federal court in New York City, right behind Nicolas Maduro. And he's in chains, and Donald Trump has pulled him in. So it just goes to show that the United States is sending strong messages out to all of these countries. And I can imagine that many of the leaders or the presidents are probably not sleeping too well at night if they do not want to adhere to whatever the United States is pushing.
Prime Minister of Canada. However, Iran is retaliating, resulting in strikes in the Middle East and threats of the country's heaviest defense attack yet. Now, back here at home, hundreds of people gathered in downtown Tampa just in the last few hours in show of solidarity for their family and friends in Iran. Now, the regime change has been inspiring demonstrations across the country, including here in Tampa Bay. 10 Tampa Bay News reporter Annie Krall was at that rally hearing about the current tensions and celebrations.
Following the attack, some of the 5,000 Iranians who are estimated to live in the Tampa Bay area tell me that it was not only their duty to show support, but it was also their privilege. Cars honking, music playing, and the American national anthem being sung. That's what you heard in downtown Tampa Sunday afternoon, celebration while many people are still.
So we pretty much have the same scene here in New York City. Recently in Times Square over the last couple of days, different Iranians here that are in the United States have been demonstrating, and some of them have been pro the actions that's happening, but some of them have been against it. So either way, I'm going to be reporting from Times Square later on this week to show you guys what's happening, because there's so many different demonstrations. Also, we're going to move on now and take another look at what Donald Trump officially had to say after the supreme leader of Iran was taken out. Let's get to it.
Breaking news. The president is giving an update on social media about the strikes in Iran. Let's take a listen.
Over the past 36 hours, the United States and its partners have launched Operation Epic Fury, one of the largest, most complex, most overwhelming military offensives the world has ever seen. Nobody's seen anything like it. We have hit hundreds of targets in Iran, including Revolutionary Guard facilities, Iranian air defense systems. Just now it was announced that we knocked out 9 ships plus their naval building, all in a matter of literally minutes. Iran's formerly supreme leader, Ayatollah Khamenei, is dead. This wretched and vile man had the blood of hundreds and even thousands of Americans on his hands and was responsible for the slaughter of countless thousands of innocent people all across many countries. Last night, all over Iran, the voices of the Iranian people could be heard cheering and celebrating in the streets when his death was announced. The entire military command is gone as well, and many of them want to surrender into saving their lives. They want immunity. They're calling by the thousands.
So many of us are hearing different things from different sources, especially on the internet and also on television. But put a 1 in the chat if you believe what Donald Trump is saying, that the individuals there, boots on the ground in Iran, the local people, are happy about what happened to their leader. Or put a 2 if you think it's some sort of propaganda. Let's see what people are saying in the comments.
Combat operations continue at this time in full force, and they will continue until all of our objectives are achieved. We have very strong objectives. They could have done something 2 weeks ago, but they just couldn't get there. Earlier today, CENTCOM shared the news that 3 U.S. military service members have been killed in action. As one nation, we
Guys, take a moment, hit the like button, share, and subscribe. Thank you very much.
grieve for the true American patriots who have made the ultimate sacrifice for our nation.
Anonymous says, America is the best country on earth. Okay, thank you.
Even as we continue the righteous mission for which they gave their lives, we pray for the full recovery of the wounded and send our immense love and eternal gratitude to the families of the fallen. And sadly, there will likely be more. Before it ends, that's the way it is, likely be more. But
Okay, guys, Grumpy is usually on point. He says, I've been watching Middle Eastern news and they look pretty happy. So he gives a 1. Okay, so far we have quite a few 1s and 2s. We'll see how it all pans out in the end. But thank you guys for participating in the poll.
We'll do everything possible where that won't be the case. But America will avenge their deaths and deliver the most punishing blow to the terrorists who have waged war against basically civilization. They have waged war against civilization itself.
According to what we've learned, in Iran, they were basically taking the lives of people by the wholesale. So I guess the United States is trying to put a cap on that. Bud says Obama and Biden sent pallets of money to Iran, the #1 sponsor of terrorism in the world. Thank you for your comment, Bud. Thank you. Stella says like, share, and subscribe and turn on your notifications. Thank you very much. And welcome in, everybody. Coupe DeVille liked and subscribed to the channel. We're so happy to have you. That is so encouraging. Thank you very much.
Our resolve, and likewise that of Israel, has never been stronger. America is now, again, the richest, most powerful nation in the world by far. But the only reason we enjoy the quality of life that we do and the freedom and security is we have done things that others are unable to do. But it's because of warriors who are willing to lay down their lives to do battle with our enemies. And they do battle better than anybody. An Iranian regime armed with long-range missiles and nuclear weapons would be a dire threat to every American. We cannot allow a nation that raises terrorist armies to possess such weapons.
Now, keep in mind, folks, if you go back over the last year, Iran has basically been moving or selling a lot of these drones, these high-tech drones, to these other countries, especially in the war with Russia and Ukraine and many other wars indeed. So that's why we see in this act that they're able to strike 7 different countries simultaneously and really taking out innocent people in the process. And they're trying to send a message because they know that the United States is big on oil and they do not want the oil prices to go up. That will transcribe into gasoline. So it looks like this is strategic from both ends, but we have to see how it all materializes.
Would allow them to extort the world to their evil will. Not going to let it happen. We're not happening to us, and we're not going to let it happen to others. The United States has the strongest military the world has ever seen. I rebuilt our military in my first term. There's never been a military like we possess. And frankly, there's nobody even close, but we are now using that military for good. We want to have it for good purpose. We're undertaking this massive operation not merely to ensure security for our...
Does any of you in the audience have any family members or children in the military, especially being affected by all that's happening right now? And keep in mind, we have fires pretty much all over the place. Last week, there were Americans that were pretty much trapped in Mexico. Now, if you go to social media, you'll see that they have Americans trapped in Dubai, a place that I've been to before. And there's several places that people can't even get back home. So what do you guys think about that? Tell us in the comments.
Own time and place, but for our children and their children, just as our ancestors have done for us many, many years ago. This is the duty and the burden of a free people. These actions are right and they are necessary to ensure that Americans will never have to face a radical, bloodthirsty terrorist regime armed with nuclear weapons and lots of threats. For almost 50 years, these wicked extremists have been attacking the United States while chanting the slogan, "Death to America" or "Death to Israel," or both. They are the world's #1 state sponsor of terror. We are the world's greatest and most powerful.
Here in New York, we keep getting these reminders of the sleeper cells that we have here. A lot of them came in during the last administration right over the border. In fact, you would see different videos of not only people from southern South America and the islands coming in, you would also see Middle Eastern people coming through Mexico and coming across the border. So that's why we have this major issue now with not even knowing where some of the enemies of America actually exist within our country. That's why we have to really be vigilant and keep your eyes open, because you really don't know fully what's happening and what the major threats are, a lot of which can be right in your backyard. So I like to encourage everybody to really be alert in this particular time.
Powerful nation, so we can do something about what they do. These intolerable threats will not continue any longer. I once again urge the Revolutionary Guard, the Iranian military, police, to lay down your arms and receive full immunity or face certain death. It will be certain death. Won't be pretty. I call upon all Iranian patriots who yearn for freedom to seize this moment, to be brave.
Okay, so Donald Trump is telling them to lay down the weapons and give up, or else you're going to be in hot water. You're going to lose your life. Coupe DeVille says, and thank you again for subscribing, says, here in Austin, we just had a sleeper murder 3 and injured 20. We're going to get to that story a little bit later, but that's a good example of someone being in the United States. And actually, I believe this individual did not walk across the border illegally. I think they were actually came through legitimately, although I need to confirm that more fully.
Be bold, be heroic, and take back your country. America is with you. I made a promise to you, and I fulfilled that promise. The rest will be up to you, but we'll be there to help. Thank you. God bless you to our incredible warriors, and God bless the United States of America.
You have to admit that the United States is showing a lot of strength. You could be on the receiving end, and I'm pretty sure it would not be as beautiful as it is to be in the United States, especially in times like this. We're going to get to how there has been at least, I believe, 4 deaths, and the number is probably increasing by the hour of the Americans that have lost their lives because of this action that's happening abroad. Let's check it out.
As the conflict in the Middle East continues to escalate this morning.
This morning, we are following several key developments as the Secretary of Defense, Pete Hegseth, just wrapped up a press conference moments ago. Leah Bino joins us now with what we have learned just in the last hour.
Before we get started, I want to answer Ralph's question. Says, do USA think that people in the Middle East are going to love USA after bombing everybody and everything in the Middle East? Absolutely not. And that's why we're under such great threat right now. And it's just a matter of time before something really pops off. Thank you for your comment.
Or so. Good morning.
Good morning. Yes, Secretary of War Pete Hegseth and General Dan Kane, who is the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, spoke for about 45 minutes last hour about the lead up and the execution of Operation Epic Fury thus far. They did also confirm, as did U.S. Central Command.
I just want to pause for a minute. Lori, there's 2 live streams happening simultaneously. One goes to your cell phone, that's the vertical. The other one is horizontal. It's more for laptops, desktop computers, and also televisions. So that's why you're not seeing both chats, and you feel like you might be out of place. But depending on which mechanism you like to use the most, you could choose the vertical on your cell phone or watch it on your television. While I was out boots on the ground in Tucson, Arizona, a lot of people said they wanted to watch, but they wanted to see the big screen on their television. So that's why I'm streaming to both places, because most of the viewers, they like to watch it on their cell phone, but we give the other options to everyone.
Publicly a few minutes prior that 4 U.S. service members have been killed in action. Federal officials say 3 passed away over the weekend, with the 4th dying overnight from injuries sustained during Iran's initial attacks. And Chairman Kane expects more casualties as the conflict continues.
Guys, PG says he's praising the military, but his ICE is thugs have detained and harmed military vets. Thank you, PG, for continually supporting the channel and giving good comments. Thank you.
This is not a single overnight operation. The military objectives that CENTCOM and the Joint Force have been tasked with will take some time to achieve, and in some cases will be difficult and gritty work. We expect to take additional losses, and as always, we will work to minimize U.S. losses.
And Secretary Pete Hegseth says this is a major combat operation with focused objectives of protecting Americans and preventing Iran from dispersing weapons beyond its borders. He issued a strong warning this morning saying, quote, if you kill Americans, if you threaten Americans anywhere on earth, we will hunt you down without apology and without hesitation and will kill you, unquote.
The mission of Operation.
We've seen cases in the past where Americans have been in different countries, and sometimes it seems like they're just left out there on an island by themselves. But at least we can say that the impression that this administration has been given recently is that you can't mess with Americans. And if you do, you're going to find out the hard way. So that's a clear message that I think many people should appreciate.
Epic Fury is laser focused.
Especially if you travel. A lot of people don't travel, so they probably ignore those type of messages. But if you travel, it is quite concerning to be trapped someplace like the people that are in Dubai or in Mexico just trying to get back over the border.
Destroy Iranian offensive missiles, destroy Iranian missile production, destroy their navy and other security infrastructure, and they will never have nuclear weapons. We're hitting them surgically, overwhelmingly, and unapologetically.
And this morning, we're also learning more about a so-called friendly fire incident in Kuwait. According to Central Command, Kuwait Air Defenses mistakenly shot down 3 U.S. Air Force fighter jets. We're told all 6 air crew members on board were.
Yes, Lori, I believe it was, they were shot. Oh, it's actually Joanne. Some of them were shot by a friendly fire in Kuwait also. Thank you.
Were able to eject safely and are said to be in stable condition at this hour. Now, at this point, Chairman Kaine says the flow of military resources continues to the.
Okay, so in the previous live and also this live, many are calling Donald Trump a draft dodger. Explain why they're calling Donald Trump a draft dodger. Explain that.
Middle East, he says the integrated reserve and National Guard forces have continued to demonstrate the value of America's reserve forces, and that includes the Wisconsin Army National Guard operating in Kuwait and Iraq, plus Air National Guard units.
That's right, Bud. The Iranians have killed over thousands of soldiers over the years. That's a fact going back many, many moons ago. So we want to definitely keep that in mind. Let's see what Grumpy has to say. It says, Trump didn't dodge the draft. He had a medical waiver. There's a difference. Okay. Thank you for the explanation, Grumpy. Stella says, want to help out spreading the word and watching the world. All you have to do is like and share. It's that simple. Thank you guys so much for all you do.
From a variety of states, including Vermont and Virginia. And Secretary Hegseth also went on to take a few questions. At this point, there is no timeline, at least not that they can share publicly. Operation Epic Fury expected to continue for some time until those objectives are met. Back to you guys.
Okay, very good. Now we're going to switch up a little bit. We're going to talk about what's happening with Don Lemon. A lot of people are still concerned. In fact, some say Don Lemon might be looking at some hard time. But let's get back to this latest update and see if we can make sense of it.
Breaking news. I want to bring this in now. I've been telling everybody about the Austin mass shooter, and now we have a picture.
Actually, we're going to cover this story first in regards to the shooter that happened down in Texas. Then we'll get to Don Lemon.
And this is what we're finding out per multiple federal law enforcement sources to our own Bill Maloogian. The Austin mass shooter is a 53-year-old naturalized U.S. citizen who was born in Senegal.
Okay, so you heard he's a naturalized U.S. citizen, right? Born in Senegal. Okay.
And was living in Pflugerville, Texas. Material recovered from his person and inside the vehicle give possible indications of a nexus to terrorism, as the FBI announced earlier today. And remember what we said he had in his possession and was also wearing. The shooter was wearing clothing that said Allah on it, his sweater.
We have to factor in the timing of all this. with what's happening on the world scene. So here's a prime example of what can happen going forward, especially in some of the big cities. New York right now is definitely under high alert. There's so many people that are just afraid to move around because they don't know what this means. Rita, thank you very much for subscribing to the channel and coming over from the Nancy Guthrie case. I appreciate that.
Said property of Allah, and there's also known to be an undershirt with an Iranian flag and other materials inside. And remember what Representative Michael McCall of Texas just told me last hour.
Guys, we have to factor in when you see actually on his shirt, he has Allah, and everybody's entitled to worship their God. Many people, their religious practices come by way of their religion, because oftentimes religion is the lens through which people see their God. So if they're looking through a Christian lens, they're going to see it by way of Jesus. If they're looking at it through a Muslim lens, they're going to see it, and then you're going to hear the words like Allah. Everybody have their own different way, but a lot of this stems from their belief systems, and because of what they're been taught from birth, a lot of these individuals, they have hatred towards other people that do not believe as they do, and that therein lies a serious problem when people are actually exercising hatred out of their heart, and they feel like within their heart that they're doing a great deed for God.
He said, Harris, in my own backyard, just last night, we had an event that possibly could have been terror-inspired right here in Austin, Texas.
You're welcome, Clem. Thank you.
This is what he was talking about. Brett, I was reminding Americans this is not a new place for us to be in terms of keeping our heads on a swivel. But it bears repeating, we've lost Americans in the fight on the battlefield, and protecting the homeland now is also something that we must be on the alert. Now, authorities have not tied this Austin situation to what's happening in the Middle East.
Okay, getting back to Donald Trump, Lori says bone spurs. That's the reason why Donald Trump did not go into the military, because he was having some medical issues with his bones. And shout out to Brittany and Honeybee. Thank you guys for all you do. Donna, thank you, Donna. Let's see what you have to say. All MAGAs and ICE volunteer for Trump's war. Stand up. Be a man. This is what you voted for, allegedly. Thank you, Donna.
As terror related to that, but they are investigating it just moments ago.
Guys, if we could please get the likes up, it really helps to push the channel. I really do appreciate it. When I'm away, boots on the ground, let's say out in Arizona and all my travels, a lot of times the trends go down because I'm not here every day like I'm typically on. So those likes helps us get back into the algorithm. Thank you so much.
Confirming as a possible terror attack. Your reaction?
Well, we have to remain vigilant. I mean, Khamenei, he was a religious figure. We don't know if this attack was associated, but it very well may be. But the fact is, this isn't a representation of how most people from that region feel. The Iranian people, they fear their own rulers more than our own military. They hate, their own oppressive rulers than anyone else. And we may see more attacks like this. We have to be vigilant. There are proxy groups everywhere that are.
Yes, folks, we have to be very vigilant. Make sure, listen, keep in mind, Nancy Guthrie went missing, they say, from her bed. So not only in public, nowadays you could be in danger in your own home. That's something to think about. It's heartbreaking to just think about some of the things that are happening in the world. Omar says, it's USA being abusive toward the world. Okay, that was in a question mark. You guys can answer that for Omar. Do you think the United States is just bullying the world? Maybe the entire world will become a part of the United States. What do you guys say? Tell us all about it.
Looking for ways to harm Americans and hurt Americans. And but the fact of the matter is, overall, there are images right now showing most Iranians and most Shias celebrating today, not because of war, but because they hate their own rulers more than anyone else. That's a sign that we're striking, not just at their military, we're striking at the legitimacy of a brutal regime. The Iranian people want better relationships with the West. They have the potential to be our biggest ally. I think it's important we collectively separate the terrorist regime from that of the majority Iranian people. These people have spent decades.
Shout out to you, Honeybee. If there's something we can do collectively, let me know. I'd be more than happy to assist you if it's something of the sort. But thank you very much. Stella says we got 200 plus people in the live. Let's get the likes up. Okay, let's see what Kirk has to say. I was eating a pulled pork sandwich with him. Okay, thank you very much.
Trying to hurt us. And so the fact is, again, we just need to remain vigilant in the wake of these strikes.
Look, I don't want to make too much out of this because the FBI and federal authorities have to do their jobs and tell us what the facts are with this particular case. But you are looking at on your screen right now the man that they suspect to be the Austin, Texas shooter. And he is 53 years old. And I don't know if you had seen this as well. There were all sorts of descriptions about age, but now we know some specificity. He's 53-year-old American citizen, naturalized, originally from Senegal. He is wearing a sweater, and you can see here a sweater that says "Property of Allah" with an undershirt and the Iranian flag. I want to ask you about this. We had a tremendous amount of people come across the border, and I can't ignore this because this is just.
Yes, that shirt he has on mentioning Allah is going to go quite far in pushing different narratives as far as why this happened in a world where we're already divided and having major issues. We can't even get through a show in a live format without people calling names and trying to make someone else have a rough day. Dowry says, hello, Mel. That came from my home state to see about Nancy Guthrie. We appreciate you. All right. Thank you for that. I appreciate you too. Thanks.
Fact, Brett. There are a lot of people in this country. We don't know if they're being radicalized. Maybe some came in and they participated in that or led the way or have become something different while they're here. But it matters letting millions of people come in and you have no way to vet them. And that's what happened under the Biden administration. We're catching up, but a lot of those people are still here. Your thoughts?
Well, with that, as well as what's going on overseas, there's been a seismic shift in global security, right? That regime over there in Iran is, fragile after decades of corruption. That border for years was a perfect place for the Iranian regime to send some of their proxy groups undetected. I don't know if you remember years ago, we almost had an attack in D.C. where Iranians were sent in to try and kill the Saudi ambassador at the.
And by the way, World USA Life says Democrats need to go swimming in the bayous. That reminded me, remember the case down in Louisiana where people, it was Houston, Texas, where a lot of people were just showing up in the bayous. And then, in fact, they had one guy that was hanging and on fire. That's a case I need to really follow up with. That triggered that memory. But I get your point about the Democrats. You want them to go swimming with the alligators, perhaps? That's not so nice. We're trying to have a positive twist today, folks. Could we just get through the rest of the show on a positive note?
Time, there are humans out there that want to hurt us. And right now there is a complete structural shock to the Iranian regime and their way of life. Their internal system is highly centralized around this supreme leader, and that religious leader is gone. I think that was one of the reasons that President Trump initially had maybe held off the Israelis striking Khamenei because he was such a religious figure. But that's changed now. We've removed that node, and it's created this uncertainty inside the clerical establishment across the process.
So at any rate, we get the picture about what happened. We will be following this case to bring you the latest developments in regards to it. But now we're going to take a look at Don Lemon and the whole situation with the Department of Justice and some new parameters set on his particular case.
Legal news just in that controversial federal indictment of Don Lemon, another independent journalist, and several participants in an anti-ICE protest at a church in Minnesota last month. The DOJ has put together a superseding indictment modifying this case. MS Now legal affairs reporter Fallon Gallagher is here with us. What are the details, Fallon?
Yeah, Anna, we have very few details at this point because this indictment remains under seal, but we know that the DOJ has to return a new superseding indictment in the case.
And by the way, guys, I just want to mention Leslie and also some other individuals are here from Austin, Texas, right? Boots on the ground. So that's the beautiful thing about having the channel. We're able to tap in with local people and get inside emails and information to tell us about what's happening. While I was out in Tucson, Arizona, I had different individuals giving me information that I would not have learned had I not been there or talking to someone from the local area, because the local people often have information that nobody else has, and you wouldn't dare hear in the media. So it's nice to have you, Leslie. Please keep us posted. Feel free to send emails. Reach out to me to let me know any new developments when it comes to that case. Thank you.
Involving Don Lemon.
And thank you for subscribing.
Because the DOJ filed a motion asking the judge to unseal that. So we have yet to see the contents of this indictment, so we can't speak specifically to how it's changed yet, but we have a few hints. We can see online that the docket has changed, the case name has changed from U.S. v. Levy Armstrong, of course, that first co-defendant in the case, to U.S. v. Sealed. And so that implies that there may be a number of new co-defendants who have been arrested in connection to that church protest who are added to this.
We actually saw over the weekend that there were 30 plus individuals that were indicted along with Don Lemon. Now, this is a new development. So tell us what you guys think. Do you think he had a right to go into the church and cover the story of individuals that went to the church actually to protest and exercise their thoughts about the matter? Because there was a pastor in that church that was associated with ICE officially. He had a position with ICE, but do you think, being that Don Lemon has such a long history, 30 years of covering the media, that it would be appropriate for him to be covering this just as another story so that we can understand what was happening and not necessarily that he took a position as someone protesting? Tell us how you feel in the comment section.
Case. We don't know if the charges have changed, but we would imagine that this case should be unsealed very soon. What's interesting here is that our affiliate CARE in Minneapolis is reporting that 9 new people have been arrested in connection to that church protest.
Okay, so we're all the way up to 90 people. Can you imagine that? That's going to be real serious. I guess a lot of people might take deals of some sort, but I'm pretty sure that could come with some time depending on how much you were involved. But we know in this particular case, Don Lemon covers Donald Trump on a grand scale. Day in, day out, he reports about all of the different parameters and also the facets of this administration. So he probably had a major target on him before he even went out there. So by going to cover this, it looks like he walked right into the danger zone when it comes to Donald Trump and the administration. But my question to you is, do you think they're going to try to put the screws to him and make sure that he gets some time in jail? It appears that he may have already spent some time through the night there. I don't know officially, but he's already had a feeling of what a jail cell might be like, I would imagine.
Protest. So it could be that they're adding those 9 new defendants to this case. But at this point, we don't know. What's really notable here, though, is that this new superseding indictment comes after the judge denied the government's request to make this a complex case because.
So superseding indictment, the fancy rec room says posting to all. Trump is sending us to war. Prepare by stocking up for food and ammo. And remember, you are not immune to propaganda. Thank you very much for that comment. And thank you for subscribing to the channel. Nosy says, sadly, there's always people that think in those twisted, radical Islamic ways. Islam is not that way. They are good people like other religions. Okay. Thank you for your point of view. Nosy, thank you very much. Okay. And let's see here. Okay, we'll keep moving. We'll take one more from Jeff. Jeff, always good to see you. Jeff says 857 Arizona says it shows unity that the family is seen laying flowers out in front of Nancy's house. Thank you very much for that inside information.
Because there were so many co-defendants, there are 9 original defendants in this case. So if they add 9 new additional defendants, that makes this very thorny.
Okay, you'll keep us posted. Thank you for bringing us that breaking news.
Okay, all right. So when it comes to Don Lemon, tell us in the chat by way of a 1 if you think that what he did was harmless, or put a 2 in the chat if you felt like he broke the rules and therefore he should suffer some sort of consequences. Tell us how you feel when it comes to Don Lemon. We're going to see what everybody has to say about that. And thank everybody for participating. I really do appreciate it. It seems that many are starting to basically put 1s and 2s. We have Caprello in the building. Thank you very much. So far, We have more twos than ones. All right. Thank you very much. We're going to keep moving here. We're almost running out of time, but we're going to keep moving.
News exclusive report. President Trump expressing his disappointment in FBI Director Kash Patel over his behavior at the Winter Olympics. According to a
Now, last week I showed you the video of Kash Patel celebrating, and I guess it looked like he was really partying hard with those who won in the Olympics, right? But Donald Trump actually pushed back on Kash Patel. We covered this last week. We didn't know how Donald Trump would respond, so I was awfully happy to be able to share with you what Donald Trump thought about it.
Person familiar with the matter. You remember this, Patel facing scrutiny for that locker room celebration with the U.S. men's hockey team after they won the gold medal. I want to bring in our Gabe Gutierrez, who has more on this reporting. This is a Kash Patel call your office kind of moment, huh?
Yeah, no kidding, Hallie. You know, this is all related, as you suggested, to that video of FBI Director Patel partying.
Now, keep in mind, before we even covered this, Kash Patel has taken on so much heat for using the government, the airplanes and so forth, resources to travel, and many often mention it in regards to a girlfriend, right? So, you know, the Democrats especially are going to say, why is this guy out here moonlighting with a girlfriend and using the government's and the taxpayers' resources? So keep that in mind as you cover this here.
In that locker room with the U.S. men's hockey team, including chugging beer after they won gold. Now, President Trump told Patel he would.
Now, we know Donald Trump is not big on drinking. He says that he doesn't drink. I think he says he hasn't ever drunk before. So just imagine how he would feel about this.
Was disappointed in his behavior. That's according to a person familiar with the matter. Now, the president, who does not drink, said he was also unhappy with Patel's use of government aircraft for the trip. The FBI declined to comment. Now, Patel previously said,
I can understand why they would decline to comment. Getting back to Don Lemon for a minute, Nosy says just because he kept saying he is a journalist doesn't mean he wasn't being an activist. And I think therein lies the issue, because if he was being more of an activist, they're definitely going to try to hold his feet to the fire. But either way, if it comes down to a court case, I would definitely go to the court and also be boots on the ground for you guys.
Hallie, that he was in Italy for official meetings.
So you can see in the video, Kash Patel is really going in, celebrating, which I don't find anything wrong with celebrating, but let's see what Donald Trump has to say.
Meetings with Italian law enforcement, and that the hockey team invited him to celebrate. An FBI spokesperson said that Patel would reimburse any personal expenses. Meanwhile, the White House tells us the president has full confidence in his administration, touting falling crime rates. Hallie.
We think.
Okay, Capello says that Patel should be indicted. I don't agree with that. I think that's rather extreme. Stead says religion and politics are designed to keep the masses frustrated and fighting each other. And they're doing quite a good job with that, because people, by way of religion, politics, love to just berate and put the next man down. Now we're going to take a look at Nancy Guthrie. As you guys know, I was out there for over a week, right in front of her home, as many of us were trying to just figure out what happened to her. Actually, we were hoping that she would come back home, or perhaps the police, the feds, would have given an update stating what happened to her and that she's okay, she's coming home, just to get some sort of resolve to the issue. But so far, we're at the month, and still nothing with her. Let's get to it. Let's see what's happening here.
This morning, Tucson marking 1 month since Nancy Guthrie went missing.
There's still a lot of hope out there.
4 weeks later, investigators still trying to piece together the unbearable mystery. According to...
And by the way, before we move on into this, a lot of people are saying that Kash Patel perhaps should go to jail. Is it? Or is it Don Lemon? Now it's kind of confusing. Just clarify, guys, are you talking about Kash Patel, or are you talking about Don Lemon needs to go to jail? But quite a few people are saying he needs to go to jail. Let's see who it is.
FBI crime data, kidnappings involving seniors over the age of 80 are extremely rare, fewer than 1% of all abductions. Investigators continue to work several leads, including the thousands of hours of footage amassed. like that Ring camera video obtained by Fox News Digital showing a car driving past a home 2.5 miles away around the time Nancy Guthrie was abducted. According to the sheriff.
Now, for those of you that have seen this car that everybody's talking about, the key thing about the car, even though the FBI allegedly has officially said that they're not looking into this car because it's where it's located and they knew about it previously. But one thing about this particular car, it would be on a route that less people would be able to discover you. So it would make sense that someone would go away when less people, or maybe they felt there were less cameras. But at any rate, such a small car, it wouldn't seem to be ideal for trying to help take someone away who could be of age, barely moving around and so forth, with a little tiny car. It just seems a little absurd, but you never know, and that's why people are still bringing a lot of attention to that particular car.
Nancy's pacemaker disconnected at 2:28 a.m. The car in the Ring footage drove by this house 8 minutes later at 2:36 a.m. Google Maps says the drive between the two homes is 7 minutes. We did it ourselves, and it took us just over 6 minutes.
So when you think about the timing of it, at 2:28, her pacemaker disconnected from her cell phone. So if you factor that in, the person's probably moving in a car or moving her far away from the phone, right? So if they're moving, it's 8 minutes away where this particular camera is set up on a fence, I believe. So the timing seems to fit. Also, it looks like the car is booking it, moving rather fast. So maybe there is some sort of truth to this. We don't know. Peter says, talking about Don Lemon, it says Lemon and anyone in media shouldn't interrupt any service, personal or social event unless invited. He should be prosecuted, fined, and jailed. Okay, so you want them to throw the book at him. All right, thank you, Peter.
Doctors have probably burned all their clothes. They've got rid of the car, but they can't get rid of video evidence that's in a neighbor's house, and that's a couple of miles away. So that's good. That's good evidence. Better evidence? Let's find some DNA.
Arizona State University forensic science professor April Stonehouse is an expert in mixed DNA, like the sample believed to be found at Nancy's home.
When the sheriff says that the lab is facing some challenges, what do you think that means?
It seems a little bit off to me that the only DNA that they really have is DNA that they can't really decipher for whatever reason. So it makes me feel like perhaps whoever went in to get her, even though there may have been the guy identified in the video, whoever went in to get her perhaps had DNA that would belong in the house, and maybe that explains why they're not finding someone else's DNA in the house. But we don't know officially, but it seems like it's shaping up that way. I don't know. Nosy says Donald J. Trump's brother was an alcoholic, so he doesn't like the drinking. I've said many times on this channel that I knew personally Donald Trump's brother Robert here in New York. And he was quite an amazing guy, if you ask me, though.
I think that means that there are potentially items of evidence that maybe don't have a lot of DNA on them to begin with.
She says it's very possible the mixture is mostly DNA of just one person.
Let's say 90% of the DNA comes from the victim and only 10% is from the suspect. Then what they can potentially do is go back and rerun that sample and add more DNA, hoping to bring up the signal from the suspect's profile, but there's no guarantee.
Meanwhile, outside the station where Savannah once worked, a growing number of messages of love and hope.
I guess we feel like based on what we see at large, we're so used to the federal government figuring out things rather quickly, having all the cameras and access. So to hear a lot of the hiccups with this case, it has many people puzzled, like, how do we get here? Is this case really going cold? I don't think anyone expected for this case of all cases to go cold, especially with all of the manpower. In fact, the president of the United States says, listen, I'm willing to give you guys all the resources needed to try to figure out what happened to Nancy Guthrie. And so far, we're out a month and still no Nancy Guthrie in sight.
Is it important for you to come and sign this wall? Because I'm a Tucsonan and I'm a mother, and it's heartbreaking.
Liz, let's talk about that detail, that car that drove by that appeared to be speeding away. What else did police glean from that piece of video?
Yeah, well, Hoda, I think it's important for all of us to remember right now that this is just one piece of video out of thousands of hours of footage investigators are looking at, most of which has not been made public. That said, what I can tell you from doing the drive is that, well, it is definitely not the fastest way out of Nancy's neighborhood. It is a route that would avoid the biggest intersections. And while the timing wasn't exact, given there's a lot of unknowns right now, we don't know what route they could have taken or how long it would have taken them to get out of the home. It isn't out of the realm of possibility. The timing would line.
Yes, indeed. Anything is possible. Let's see here. We have the Speaker of Purity says, do you think the Iran stuff is a cover-up for Epstein? I do think that some distractions are in place for Epstein because it's such a big case, but I don't think Iran would be a part of that. Although anything could be possible, I just don't see it myself. Thank you.
Up, and we do know that it is part of the investigation, Hoda.
All right, Liz, thank you so much. And as always, if you have any information, any that could be helpful, please call this number, the FBI's tip line.
Okay, so there you have the number if you want to call the FBI if you have some sort of tip. It would be very much appreciated. Let's bring home Nancy Guthrie. Capello says both belong in prison. So Kash Patel and Don Lemon need to go to prison. Okay, so a lot of people feel like both of these individuals have some serious issues. Okay, a lot are saying Kash Patel, and then some are saying Don Lemon. Okay, thank you very much. The final video we're going to look at today for News at Noon, and thank you to all the watchers that have participated today. I really do appreciate it. I've been away for far too long, but I was out for a good cause covering Nancy Guthrie's case. We also have a lot of court cases recently. I covered the Alexander brothers. We have Luigi Mangione happening. I also have to be in court for Nicolas Maduro. I will be covering Weinstein. And keep in mind that Sean Diddy Combs' attorney, Mark Agnifilo, it seems that he will be covering Harvey Weinstein going forward, because I guess Harvey Weinstein has been caught up so much and he's seen the fruits from Mark Agnifilo. Perhaps he felt like that he can do the same for him as he did for Sean Diddy Combs, because as you guys know, I covered Sean Diddy Combs' case, and the RICO charges would have sent him away for life, and also all of his assets would have been in jeopardy. So if Harvey Weinstein is successful with Mark Agnifilo, perhaps he'll be able to get out of some of the trouble that he's in. But we have to wonder, why are so many prominent individuals, especially even with the Epstein files, why are so many men, namely, involved in abuse when it comes to women, children, and also men as well? So we have all these questions. We would like to have answers, but it tells us that there's a bigger problem in play. And you know it's really bad when it goes into the church. And a lot of the religious groups, they have issues with people being abused inside of their churches or what have you too. So it goes to show the heart of man, it could be something terrible sometimes, and we don't know what causes people to do such vile things. Hip Flex says, I heard Patel was partying with her captors. Okay, not sure. I haven't heard anything about that. Leslie says the feds have way more info than we do, keeping lots under their hats. It's okay. They'll solve this. Okay, I'm confident too that eventually they will solve the case. Maybe sooner than we think, but we just have to keep our eyes open. So this last point we're going to get to is to show you that the new administration is really making it hard for individuals. You have to really prove yourself, even to get a driver's license or your registration. What do you guys think about that? Do you think it's too much, or do you think it's well needed based on the time? Because think about it. In order to live in the United States, it's a beautiful situation, right? But for the most part, I think many people feel that way in comparison. But not being able to have a driver's license and to get around, that could be quite troubling. especially if you've had it already. So let's notice what's happening, and this is starting in Texas. Let's see.
Planning to buy or register a vehicle in Texas, you'll soon have to meet much stricter identification requirements. Thank you for choosing KTSM 9 News Now. I'm Diana Castillo. The new state mandate requirement will require residents to prove their legal status in the U.S. when registering.
Guys, take a moment, hit the like button, share, and subscribe as Stella has highlighted. Thank you.
Registering their vehicles. The Texas Department of Motor Vehicles officially adopted the new rules they say are aimed at cracking down on fraud and ensuring that only those legally eligible to reside in Texas can register vehicles to drive on state roads. El Paso County Tax Assessor Collector Ruben Gonzalez announced.
Now, it might be just a matter of time before these same procedures hit your state, depending on where you're from. If you don't mind, tell us what state are you located in. Let's get an idea where everybody is tuning in from. Caprello is bringing up a subject that I didn't bring up because I was out with covering Nancy Guthrie when it broke, about Michael Jordan and the video that came out with the young man, which a lot of people are disturbed by. So perhaps I don't really want to speak on it without probing into the story a little bit more and try to understand the context, but it does look quite scary, I must say.
Announcing the changes at a news conference this afternoon. Our KTSM 9 News reporter Jesus Baltazar was there and joins us live from the Lower Valley. Jesus, what can you tell us?
Well, Diana, Gonzalez said this is the biggest state mandated change he'll have to process in his career, noting it is no longer enough for people just to prove their residency in El Paso to register their vehicle or buy a vehicle. Notes that now they'll be having to prove their legal status in the country.
So dig that. Now you have to prove your legal status to get any of this done. That could be tricky for a lot of people, especially with all the individuals that have come into the country over the last few years illegally.
The newly adopted rules, standard vehicle registrants can no longer use IDs that have been expired for up to 12 months. Instead, you must present a valid, unexpired document that proves legal presence in the United States. Acceptable IDs now include an unexpired real ID, a valid passport, or a Texas handgun license.
I mean, it is a part of public safety for people to be legitimate, and you have to understand who you're dealing with. That's quite understandable. But some feel like it's going too far. Lori says, Mel, I was watching you on Anjanette Levy the other night, and your interpretation of the porch guy video was great. All right, I will be doing the same breakdown on the channel tonight here. Tonight at 8 p.m., we're going to go through a lot of the videos pertaining to the sheriff in Nancy Guthrie's case. So I realize a lot of people are not as invested or concerned about Nancy Guthrie. But tonight at 8 p.m., we're going to go through basically video by video and make a comparison of some of the things that the sheriff is actually saying and also the local media there. And it's going to really help you to understand that although they're trying to hold back information, a lot of the information that we're receiving is not accurate. And I think this causes a problem to trying to solve this problem with Nancy Guthrie. Thank you.
Your out-of-state license doesn't verify your legal status. You need backup proof of citizenship, like a birth certificate. Gonzalez noting this will have a huge impact on the border economy.
Wow, folks, a lot of people do not like Kash Patel. It's coming, it's shining through in the chat. They want him out. They want him fired.
It's going to hurt our local dealers. If the individual that buys a vehicle doesn't have valid ID, theoretically, they can't buy a vehicle because they can't title it. So it's going to hurt the economy because the dealers will not be able to sell a vehicle. We won't be able to collect the motor vehicle sales tax that's due, the registration fees.
Gonzalez calls the change political, but notes his office is compelled to abide by the rule, emphasizing again that this is a state mandate, not a change made by his office, and calls for El Paso state delegation to challenge it in the legislature. Now, I have also spoken with small local car dealers sharing their disdain for the rule change, saying that they're essentially being forced to act as federal immigration agents, questioning people's legal status.
So think about that. And if it's also affecting the car dealers, you know it's going to affect the mortgage world when people are trying to buy a home too, because now you have to make sure that the person is legitimately in the United States, or else you're going to waste your time collecting all this paperwork and trying to help the person get into a home, and just to run into some problems saying that they're not vetted properly in the United States. So something to think about. I'm going to go through a few of the comments before we end the show, but thank you guys. We had a tremendous amount of comments, a tremendous amount of support today when it comes to watching the world, and I am so thankful to you guys. Mimi says, no, Don Lemon doesn't need to serve time when Donald J. Trump is a felon already. Okay, is it true that Donald Trump is a felon? I actually went to his trial here in New York City. He did receive 34 felonies, although I don't think he really takes them seriously because he calls it some sort of Democratic witch hunt. But on record, because those are state charges, he can't just exonerate himself or pardon himself from under those charges. So he will go down in history, I guess, as the first president that had 34 felonies. Nosy says, oh, Alexander Brothers, I would love to be there. I covered the Alexander Brothers, and it was tough after covering Sean Diddy Combs' case to sit in the Alexander Brothers trial and hear the witnesses come in. A lot of them, which were young ladies, would talk about how they would meet these young men on these dating apps. And then when they arrived to the property, they were wined and dined. They had some great event. A lot of them would go out on the boats and there would be other people around. And then they would be giving a drink that had something in it. And after they had the drink, they would get all woozy and lose their, consciousness and waking up to being assaulted. This was a claim. The defense did the best they could to try to show that perhaps these women were just seeking to get money. That's a common thread that we see in these cases where the defense make that argument that women, or the victims per se, because the victims can be male or female, let's not get it twisted. But they try to make it seem that it's all about money. But the issue is, they said in this case there was potentially over 60 victims for the three brothers. So just imagine, you might be able to have that argument for the first 4 or 5. But by the time the jury see 12, maybe 13 women come through, not even that amount, like 6 or 7, I think they start to realize that there's something there, like when they say where there's smoke, there is fire. So I'm glad you were interested in the Alexander Brothers. I will be breaking that down more as the week goes on. I'll be in court again tomorrow. Okay, Julie says, too much power. Thank you very much, Julie. Thank you for subscribing to the channel. Grumpy says, so they are enforcing the same laws that have been on the books for 70 years. Okay, thank you. Matrix says, because half of what you see, believe half of what you see and none of what you hear. That is so true. I used to hear that growing up. My grandmother would say it all the time. Bud says only U.S. citizens should be voting. Okay, a lot of people feel that way. Okay. Amanda, thank you, Amanda, for subscribing to Watching the World and being a part of our unity here. She says, I think it's all BS. Less government, red tape. Okay. All right. Thank you. We hear you loud and clear, Amanda. The Deep Fake says, hello, chat family. I was on some Tucson business. Oh, boy. Just posted the info. Okay. So if you want to check out what this new information is, I guess we're going to have to check out the Deep Fake report to try to figure out what's going on. Okay. Thank you for sharing. Okay. We have, let's see here. Leslie is from Texas. Okay. Julie's from Colorado. Okay. Brent says, easy to secure an ID. Okay. I think it's just a trip probably to the motor vehicle. Okay. The deepfake is from Washington State. Nosy says, I'm a naturalized citizen. It was easy, so I'm not buying the people can't get an ID. I didn't naturalize by marrying an American. Okay, that's very common, but you went a different route. Okay, Amanda says, I have a house in Houston, Texas, and one in Las Vegas. Okay, nice. That's awesome. Grumpy says, driving is a privilege, not a right. Thank you for that reminder. Nosy is from Texas. Thank you very much. Stella, okay, thank you for your comment. New Jerseyan is from Ohio. Thank you. Nice, okay. Amanda says, they do things so differently in those two states. Okay, I could second that. All right, let's see here. Finn Moon says, thank goodness. Not sure what that's about, but thank you for your comment. Jeff is a fellow New Yorker. Very nice. Okay, take care, Deborah. We'll see you soon. Amanda says, they want to prove legal residency in Texas. Ha ha. You know what? I used to prove my address that I changed right there in front of the department. Okay, Cash App. Okay. All right. Thank you for that inside information. Okay. Bud says, they fear Kash Patel. All right. The deepfake says, I'll work behind the scenes on a lot of this with people who want my help. I kind of like being behind the scenes and providing the information, so I'm sticking to a way I do things from here. Okay. Thank you. Thank you. Nosy says, you need real ID to fly, or perhaps your passport. So many other things. Yes. So if you don't have the real ID, you could use your passport. Finn Moon says, we have rules for a reason. Okay. Stella is giving us a great reminder. Like, share, and subscribe to the channel. All right. And then we have Gold Digger says, don't forget to hit the like button for Mel on your way in. Subscribe and continue to enjoy the content. Watching the World 777. All right. The deepfake says 34 felonies. Yes, indeed. That's what the president received in New York. Those were state charges. So being that they're not federal, he can't really wiggle out of those charges. No one can. Those state charges. I think the governor is the only person that would be able to make those charges go away. And I don't see that happening. Nosy says Donald J. Trump has street cred. All right. Perhaps a lot of people respect that. Bud says those fake charges are going to be overturned under appeal. All right. We'll see what happens. I'll be reporting live from New York City when it does happen. Leslie says Donald J. Trump is a felon. Okay. All right. Okay. The deepfake says sadist predator. Okay. We have Georgia in the building. Georgia says there was never been a time when I voted and didn't have to show ID. Great point. And we're going to end with Lori watching from South Dakota. Thank you guys for tuning in today. We had so much to cover. Again, tonight we're going to be going through and checking out a lot of the videos that the sheriff put out from the very beginning when it comes to Nancy Guthrie. And I think you'll start to get the full picture of some of the details that we tend to forget as time goes on. Keep in mind, we're at the month point. In fact, they just said that Savannah Guthrie will be returning to the Today Show. That's what the rumor is on the street. So thank you guys for tuning in today. I really do appreciate it. I'll see you guys tonight. And again, I know it's tough, but we're going through a lot. A lot of people are upset about so many different things. But when it is possible, let's try to be peaceable with that. And I'm not sure what's happening with at the very end, we're starting to have some technical difficulty. So thank you very much. We'll end before that gets out of hand. I really do appreciate each and every one of you, and I'll see you tonight at 8 p.m. Thank you.
Different voices, but the same song. Living a world where we all belong. Kindness leading the way, breaking the chains. In the symphony of love, the thing remains. Embracing diversity, brought brighter days in sight. Watching the world sharing love and light. Hearts beating as one in our peaceful flight. Colors of harmony painting the night. United we stand in love's pure might. Painting the night, united we